Hello and welcome to the 8th edition of the TCC Community Meet. Like all our editions, we again have a theme tonight, and the theme is book reviews. Now, by book reviews, we don't mean just we have book reviews of one book that we have read. It's about the books that we have liked, the books that we have loved, the books that have inspired us, and the books that we would like to read. It's like a general discussion on books about the books that have touched us in some way or the other. So, Chitra, would you like to add something?
No, it's essentially about our love for books, and I think as authors, our journey started by reading books and connecting to them. So it's essential to remember that part of our life and not forget that to improve as writers, also we have to keep reading, not just for enjoyment, but now that we are authors, there are certain ways you notice stuff that you didn't notice before. Earlier we want to know the story, what happens next, but there are so many other factors and it's so many little nuggets that appear in books and which suddenly catch your attention. I mean, even the classics that you have read before, when you read them now, you'll observe something new in them. So I think that's like a writer's perspective. So it's interesting to know about books and why they appeal to authors in particular, now that we have that writer's eye. So
I would like to add something here. On a personal note, I have always read as a reader and then as a writer. But now for the last 2, 3 years, I also read as an editor, and that has just made the process more tedious because I'm reading a book and I'm like, there should have been a comma here. This sentence could have been done better. This word should have they could have used a synonym here, and it's just become the process has become more tedious of reading something. So now I read as a reader, as a writer, as an editor, and then I also think, yeah, if I could direct a movie out of this story, how would I do it? I don't think about acting though. That if I could be the main character, I never think of that. Lee does that. Okay, so
yep.
who would like to talk first? I would again go with Neeraj.
Ooh,
Yes,
thanks.
even though you have come early today, I would still go.
Yeah, I two times in a row. That's awesome for me.
Yeah,
Uh,
actually, you're breaking the streak. No, you're ruining your own image. Okay.
or maybe I'm building a better image.
Yeah, no, but better image is not always the nice image. You know, Lee would concur with this as well.
Okay. Uh,
Introduce yourselves first.
okay. I am Neeraj SK. I am a writer, an aspiring editor. And recently I've realized because of TCC that apparently I might also be a poet. So yeah, so that is me. I also am a very extremely slow reader, and just as I was going through my read list, I realized that the last book that I have completed was in September, and since then I have been reading and haven't completed a single book. So this meeting will probably inspire me to read faster, read better. Okay, so for the first book that I'd really like to talk about, and I'll always talk about this book, is Tuesdays with Mori. It's a very old book. There has, I think there's also a film made on the book. I haven't watched the film yet, but I really love the book mainly because I am someone who struggles with mental health issues. Uh, and although the book is not technically about mental health, it is about a professor who is suffering with health issues, and his student is visiting him, and I mean they get into talking, and this professor is telling his student as to how he goes by living a life despite all the difficulties that he's facing in his life. And there are a lot of simple lessons, very simple nuggets, very relatable stuff, and extremely honest stuff that any person who goes through difficult times would relate to very easily. And I mean, unlike typical self-help books, I do love self-help books, but unlike very typical self-help books, this book kind of gives out self-help advice and philosophical advice in a very narrative format. It kind of tells you a story about a person whom you can relate to and learn out of the whole narration. And the one thing that has struck me very hard is that I don't remember the exact wording as to how it is put, but the man says that I cry. I obviously cry a lot. It's not that I always have a very positive spirit and sense of mind. I cry a lot, but I decide 1 hour of the day. The moment I wake up, I decide that this will be the 1 hour that I'm going to cry and finish the crying for the entire day. And the moment the 1 hour is over, after that, I'm going to decide that, okay, this is the point. Now onwards, I'll be in a positive state of mind. And that really helped me accept my issues, but not make a huge deal, so huge that I will stop myself from doing things that actually matter. So yeah, that's one book that I always keep asking people to read, and yeah, so that's my book.
I'd read Tuesdays with Mori and I was touched by it. So yeah. So it's a book that we would want to keep going back to.
Absolutely.
Lovely hearing from you, Niraj. So anyone else has read Tuesdays with Mori? No. I suggest that you please go and check it out because I mean it is a great book. It's quite a little book, but it'll touch your heart. I really like that one. I had read it in class 11th in my school library.
Yeah, it's very small, tiny book.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a small,
I
tiny book.
finish
Yes.
it in 1 or 2 days, so
Yeah.
you can definitely do it in lesser time.
So thank you, Neeraj. So next up is Prafulla. Would you like to talk about the books that you love?
Yeah, sure. To be very honest, was kind of in a slump last year, so didn't read a whole lot. Right now, I've been having a good reading week, and so I've read some books that are kind of popular-ish. Uh, so is it okay if I talk about a book that I read in 2020? It's quite a long time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this book is because I feel like this book didn't get the kind of recognition that it should get. So it's called A Year of Starless Sky, something like that. Wait, I'll just check the name. And it's written by D.S. Milan. A Year of Starless Nights. I don't know if anyone can see the screen here.
Yes, we can. Yes.
So it's a very easy read. It's a book about a 11 to 12-year-old protagonist. So it's a middle grade, like you can fly through it. And it's very comical. So I enjoy books that have a lot of situational comedy in it. I think it's really hard to write comedy. So if someone can write it and write it well, I really love it. So it's a very it has a lot of situational comedy, but it deals with a very heavy topic like child marriage. So essentially, the protagonist in this book is kind of, seeing people to get married, and she's 11, 12-ish. She's basically a beggar. So the lowest of the low in the Indian society. So that's how, that's where she is. And her parents are just trying to get rid of her because apparently 12 is too old of an age to be single. And yeah, so it's the whole situation is seen from the eyes of a 12-year-old. And because it has a lot of comedy, it's easy to get into it, because in another situation I don't think I could read a book about a 12-year-old getting married. It would be too much for me. But since there's a lot of comedy, and there's just her way of looking at things, and just her situation with her, like the person she marries and the family. I wouldn't get too much into it because I don't want to spoil it. But when she gets married and goes there, and her interactions with other people, and her reactions to the way they are, behaving around her. It's a great read. I think more people should read it. It's written by D.S. Milan. So yeah.
I haven't heard of this one, Prafula.
Okay.
So thank you for this recommendation, and please put it up in the group once we're done with this meeting, and
Yeah,
we'll
cool.
also, recommend it on our feed because yeah, these stories need to be told, and even if we don't, a lot of people don't know about such stories. I mean,
Huh.
not all authors, come up and really shine, but their stories deserve to be told. So
Yeah, I mean, it really like blew my mind because there wasn't enough people around it, and it just had this whole plot that I was like, I kind of think I can read it and enjoy it. So I'm really glad that I read it actually. So yeah, yeah.
thank you so much, Prafula, for sharing this.
Thank you.
What's on your TBR? What is going to be your next read?
Oh, quite honestly, I think your book because I I did like I really like those Amazon May you have the look into it feature.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also a very slow reader, by the way. So I'm currently reading The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak.
Oh, that's
Beautiful,
beautiful. That is
beautiful.
beautiful.
And I'm so glad that I am a slow reader for this one because I'm actually taking my time with it and it's just great. So after I finish it, I want to try two new like authors next month. So I read like because I just read 1-2 paragraphs just to get an idea of what I want next. So I might pick your book up next month. So I'm really looking
Yes.
forward to that one. Yeah. So that.
Great.
I
So
am
that's
sure I'm
two
going to love it.
people trying out my book, Shreya and Prafula. But
Yeah.
yeah, Book Thief is epic. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been
it's
suggesting it to
beautiful.
Niladri. It's like,
Uh,
I'm like, you have to read it.
yeah, it was like on my TBR for like forever. And I was like, this has to be the year because I'm on such a high with my reading. So I was like, yeah, I'm so glad I picked it up. It's like it makes omniscient narration work. It's one of the few books. It doesn't
Yes,
work
yes.
everywhere. So yeah, people
I
should
really
pick
love
it
the
up. Yeah.
storyline, and this book is really special because it was gifted to me by one of my Malayali juniors, and
Oh,
he was leaving. He was in his BTech class, and we'd interacted a few times. And I had gifted him a book about Kerala, history and everything.
okay.
So he got me a bookish gift just
Oh,
while leaving. So
huh.
that book is really special, and it belonged to him. So it's like a
Oh.
pre-loved book. So I
Yeah,
really
it's a very thoughtful book. Yeah, to give to someone. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So thank you, Prafula, for sharing this. And next up is Bharti sir. Bharti sir, this is, I think, your first ever community meet. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little more about your books and what are your favorite books? What do you like reading in general?
Yeah. My full name is KRS Bharati Kiruba. I'm from Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore. And I've written 3 books. My first book is The 4 Key Lean Principles Towards Success on Life. So basically, I'm into the field of lean manufacturing, which the principles I used to apply in the industry, what I thought was how can it be applied in the normal life. So I just made a try it about the writing. Then second book, my wife and myself, we both wrote together. She was the author and I was the co-author. Post-pandemic 2021. So it is something like a complete, how to lead a complete life. Like we took Wheel of Life as a concept, the Buddhist philosophy. So there are almost 12 concepts they are saying, like personal life, career growth, financial, those kind of things. So we thought like all the parameters we try to touch with some stories and how to take it. And third book, it is like self-confidence, the mirror to indicate yourself. So it was my third book. So this is about myself, and I am working in a private company in the field of industrial engineering and business excellence. So this is about my background. And yes, 15 days I was in quarantine in the same room, almost with all the same setups, clumsy setups. Tomorrow only I'm about to step outside, completing my quarantine. So I could able to get some time to read some books. So I read 3 books. One is like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So it was written by Robert Kiyosaki. I feel like everyone should read this book. I never thought about financial thing, just simply going for job, coming back, the same routine activity. But this book gave a different insight. I think this book everybody should read. So it is something like Robert Kiyosaki is one of the biggest rich man who is living today. I think so. He's still, I believe. I'm not sure, sure with that. So it is something like at the age of 7, he wants to learn what is financial planning. So he approaches his dad, who is a very professor, a very educated person, but always like a middle class mentality. How to earn, how to pay insurance, pay EMI, blah, 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 everything. But his friend's dad is not educated, but still he is a businessman. So he and his friend goes to his friend's dad. There the story stops. Some of the insights, if you see in that, is we should not work for the money should work for us. Even though we are sleeping, the money should actually give the work for us. This is one of the thought I learned. Second is financial freedom. For example, today if I want to lead my family with all the basic requirements, a good education to my kid, something medical emergency, some basic needs. Example, if I want 40,000 rupees, example. So even if I am not working, that 40 has to come automatically. So that is a stage where financial freedom is there. So, so these two concepts I learned from two of the books. One is like Parable of Pipeline, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and some of the books also I started learning. This two concept I learned from that. So even I set a target like next 3 years I should be in a financial freedom state. The basic needs, without my presence, it should take care.
Yeah.
As a middle class father or something, anybody feels the same. So that is one. And third, I feel like should be a business person. Whatever you go for a job, no, you can go for some extent, but you have to look for some business perspective. So after reading all these things, even I set some goals discussing with my wife in phone. Even though we were in the same home, we were discussing in phone. Up to the age of 150, I have set some targets for me. So let us see how it is going. So these 3 books was some trigger. Maybe like this 15 days gave some good new thoughts for me to think something. And another book, it's a Tamil book, which was written 60 years before. The name is Puneen Silva. Okay. That book was written, the basic concept of that book was like king called Rajaraja Solan. He was a Tamil king. He has conquered almost like most of the Indian territory, entire Sri Lanka. Entire Sri Lanka. Now, if you say like Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, everything was under his control. It was between 923 to 1023, where no technology was there. Purely he gone with that, but still, it was something like even though he conquered, it was not like a tragedy. Rather, he developed that country. That was the beauty of that. He led one of the king of that country itself to lead that thing like that kind. So this book is something like how this journey started. When you read this book, you know, even he has built a temple before 1,000 years. Still, it is in use. Still, it is in use. The beauty of that temple is like it was done with only one stone, which was, I didn't remember the height of that feet, which it is almost like very height. So it was said like it was done with a single rock, and that rock was transported for 600 kilometers from Sri Lanka. There is no technology emerged right now to do this. You can't transfer such a big rock right from Sri Lanka to Tanjavur and build such a temple, which stands still today also for more than 1,000 years. So it means he is very precise with mathematics. They were very precise with mathematics. Sculptures were very good. Everything they were looking. And the dam built by his son was still used now. 1,000 years the dam was built. So this story is how there was his sister's husband. He was the hero of this story. He used to take all these things, lot of internal politics, lot of external things. how they tackle all these things and make this Chola Empire a big thing. So some of the things are original, some of the things are creative. When you read this thing, the scenario is still floating in my mind. So I was discussing with my mother. I don't know how I got this interest. Actually, my mother said like she was reading this book when she was pregnant. I mean, like I was in her stomach, and my son Nachatra is a birth sign is like Rajaraja Sola's sign. So this too triggered me, and she said like to get out of that labor pain, she was reading that book. It seems it was like almost 3,000 pages, 5 volumes. So to get out of that labor pain, she was reading that book. Maybe scientifically it may be true. So I got interest. I felt like I was living in that era. So, but fortunately,
We
I
have a
didn't have the
time
book.
traveler here.
Yeah, it looks like that. I didn't have this
Yeah,
book.
someone
Actually. I
from
was
that
reading the
era.
audiobook.
I'm convinced now.
Yes. I was reading the audiobook actually. Since this
Okay.
this is the only room I have, I can't go outside. So I fully immersed inside. Every day, 12 hours, I was listening only to that audios, YouTube audio only. So all the 5 portions, it looks like I
Quite an
came from
immersive read then. Yeah.
this is thing.
I hope we can
I
get
don't
an
know if it is
English
English or
translation
something.
somewhere, maybe.
I have to check. But that's very thing. And the author of the book, one of the inspiration was like my mother's father is a very good artist and sculpture and other thing. This author has signed the
Nice.
my grandfather's thing. Since he was in village, he was not exposed to properly. If he had been in a city or something, he should be one of the best architect of the world. Because I have seen some of his statues still. It was there. It's something amazing. So this Kalki, who was the author of this book, has signed my grandfather's. This tree attracted, and I long time I was thinking to read this book. So this 15 days I fully immersed in that book actually. So this is one of the things how the without any technology, how the information was transferred across the country. And for example, if the minister is there, he knows what is happening in nook and corner of the country. It is like from Orissa, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, there is no technology, but this minister and other people get updated information instantly. What is happening in Indonesia, what is happening in Malaysia. So we were very ahead in technology. I could see from this book. Skills, his temple still, one of the debate is the Angkor Wat. It is one of the biggest temple in Cambodia and Thailand border. So that is 16 hectares. You can't take a photograph. So you can take only from the aeroplane. So it
There
was
are
built
so
by this.
many, amazing facts that, regional literature, has. I
Yeah.
mean, we
Yeah.
don't even get to
Yes,
focus
So
on
this
these.
I'm
many
I'm
books I
I'm a,
learned.
I'm a Bengali, and I've grown up in a house where there's a lot of Bengali literature. And Bengali literature is really famous with Tagore and Bankim Chandra and Sharat Chandra and stuff like that. So I can't read Bengali that well. That's why I couldn't read them. But my mother used to read out stories to me, and I Bengali literature is really rich. With I mean, there's still adaptations of Bengali literature that was written 78 years ago, Tagore stories and Devdas and stuff like that. So regional literature is actually very good if you can explore it properly. If you can read,
Correct.
or even if you can read translations, then you'll find great stories and great writers who write in regional languages.
Even in this book, he has
Yeah.
read all the sculptures in the temple and some of the archaeological evidence. Every now and then he used to say, from this evidence, I took this. So, but he has added some masalas also, something. But still, now actually that film is about to come, Puneen Silva. So I am very sure like it will be taken in Hindi also. 100% it cannot be taken. Mani Ratnam, one of the famous directors,
Yeah.
taking that. It is about
Yeah.
to release. Aishwarya Rai is one of the negative characters she is taking, Nandini. So
Great.
Nandini is something like she used to trap the entire Chola. It's a beauty. So Aishwarya Rai is taking in that. Can take in a good
Great.
way, but the book cannot be replicated. You can
Yeah,
read
Yeah,
this
of
true. I
course,
mean,
of course.
book to
movie. You
movie
can see that.
adaptations are an entirely different thing. Let's not even go
You
there.
can't take that. You
So,
can't
No,
take
but
thank
there's
you.
a thing about that, right? Because in a book you can write 1,000 pages, but in a movie you have to finish it in 2 hours or
Yeah.
3 hours at the most.
Unless
You
you're
just go
dividing
on-
it into parts and then doing it. But even
That's
then,
the
it leaves a
purpose.
lot.
That's the
In
business
work
of it.
also, while you're writing, you can explain in an artistic way. The same
Yeah.
you can't show in a picture also. The way he explained that lake itself was something like that lake. He used to say it as lake. Now it is a big dam. He has constructed that lake. The way he explained was, I can imagine how the lake was, but you can't picturize it. That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you,
Thank you
Bharti sir.
so much, Bharti sir. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure listening to you. I don't know why my video went off. Okay. So thank you so much. It was, refreshing to hear a different perspective. And I've been meaning to read Rich Dad Poor Dad because I'm like completely, so horrible with financial management and stuff. Mom says put it into SIP, I transfer some amount and I'm done. I don't even want to look at stuff
My
like that.
total mentality
So
got
you
changed,
have
ma'am.
also another book called Psychology of Money. So we might also want to
Uh,
look at Rich
Read
Dad Poor
that.
Dad, Psychology of
Yeah.
Money.
That one's great too, by the way. Rich Dad Poor Dad and Psychology of Money. But I personally think Rich Dad Poor Dad is easier to read for
Yeah,
people
it's
like us
easier.
who do not like. It's hard
Psychology of
for
Money
us
would be
to
a
get
little
into.
preachy type. I mean,
Yeah,
more towards
huh,
the typical self-help book that we,
yeah,
So
exactly. But
from a
both
lot
are
of
great, by the way. So
from a lot of non-fiction and self-help, let's go to a science fiction writer, Suman, and mythology and science fiction. Shreyan will come to you. We know science fiction. When I say science fiction, Shreyan said. But
But you'll be surprised though. I haven't picked a science fiction one to talk about today.
Same here, same here.
Pachka ho
I mean,
gaya.
one. I've picked one science fiction and one. I mean, I'm currently reading the science fiction one, and it's a very popular one, Project Hail Mary, Andy Weir. So that's it.
Yes. So what I have picked today is a book that was written in 1943. And it was a book that my husband actually gifted me. Let me see if I can show it. I don't know. I'm just gonna say it. It's Dim Tim's Muses. So it's basically poetry. And each poetry is like 4 lines, and it's actually written by it's written in Kannada language originally, which is from the state of Karnataka in India, but it has been translated because back then that language is like kind of ancient. It's not what's being spoken today in Kannada or in Karnataka. So, but those 4 lines, 4-line poetries that he has written is still applicable. It's still very much applicable. You can still learn. It's like, it's classic. And I have made a podcast also on 4 lines that I picked up from this book. And I'll just read quickly those 4 lines because I, being science fiction writer, just like Niladri said, I believe in a lot of things and I believe in metaphysical stuff. And I keep looking into it. I keep researching it. And my book is like full of it, whatever I have written, whatever I just said. So yeah, mythology is also
I
one
know
thing that
so
I'm
much.
very, huh?
I know.
You know, I'm telling others.
I had to button.
Yeah, so I'm very inspired by mythology also, because I like science. I love science, but I have tried to challenge my belief myself. And that's why I look into other stuff. Like I look into metaphysical that challenges that belief of mine, because I used to like blindly believe in science. And my husband said that, how are you any different from a religious person who believes everything, that's written in their book, holy book. So I'm like, I don't know. So it kind of challenged me. And that's why I started looking into it. And this book that I'm talking about today, the Dim Tim Muses, it was written in 1943, like I said, and it's really small book. It's like 191 pages, and it's 4-line poetry, so you can just, read it as you go. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to follow anything. It's not a story. So yeah, the 4 lines is, life is a horse-driven cart, fate its driver. You are the horse, passengers as allotted by God, sometimes rides to a wedding, sometimes to the graveyard. On stumbling, there is always the earth. So those are the only few lines, and it's pretty deep, and it's also scientific. It's also metaphysical. It's also religious. Just whatever way you want to look at it. So that's why, because it says there is something called God, but it also says that you don't have free will. But it says you can still change. You can manifest whatever you want. So it says a lot of things in here, which I'm very much inspired by, and that's why I like this. I like this book very much, and it was gifted to me by my husband when we met 15 years ago. So yeah.
That's sweet.
Suman, please don't mind, and please don't kill me or beat me up or send me a text with swords and knives. But in the middle, when she was talking, I laughed a little. Okay, and the reason for the laughter was this: 191-page book, and Suman said it's a very small book, and I just thought, of course, because Suman writes
Yeah, I mean,
400, 450 pages books. So 200
I know.
page books
I can't stop myself. I cannot stop myself. I know. My books are like 500 pages long, and I've written 3 of them. So yeah, I know. Yeah, this is small for me. This was nothing. I was looking at my Goodreads account, and I have 2 of them actually, and I have read 54 books last year. And I like reading books, and I'm a very fast reader. And
Yes.
I like to write.
Suman, Preeti, you all know Preeti, right? Preeti
Yeah.
and Chitra, they don't read books; they devour them. Okay.
Book
This is
terminators. We have a
I want
term
to
for
share
that.
something. I want to share something. A few days back, in the morning, Chitra told me about a book that we should buddy read, and I'm like, okay, I'm not a very fast reader, so I said, "ठीक है, I'll give it a shot." That night I asked her that what is that book, where can I find it, and we'll buddy read. And she's like, that okay, I have finished it. And I'm like, how many pages
I
was
finished
it?
it
And
in
she's like,
an hour. I mean, I was at
300 or
this.
so pages. She
Oh
finished
my
it in one
God.
and a half hours. And
I
I'm
was
like,
at this book cafe, and I picked up that book, and I didn't know the author. I mean, previously, I made a reel on it actually. It was something Demoneta or something. So that's
monitor.
Demoneta. So I tagged Niladri and said that we should buddy read because it's like demons and monsters and everything. So I finished it. I had 2 cups of coffee, finished the book, came back home. Conveniently forgetting that I asked someone to buddy read. And then this person, this book is nice, let's buddy read it. Done and dusted.
But the way I look at it is that I have been saved by Providence, because I cannot finish that book in 1 hour. It would take me a month. And people who work with me, I mean, Suman knows that, and Lee also knows that a bit. I am a really slow reader, even when I'm editing. I take a lot of time. I go through every line one by one. So I'm like, it's painstaking.
Professional hazard.
Yeah, so I'm not a fast reader. But I'm really surprised that Suman chose a poetry book.
I know. I'm not into poetry, but that's what my husband gifted me, and so I gave it a try.
Talking about poetry, we have something to tell you, but we'll tell you that after we hear Lee.
Lee, unmute yourself, and please do tell us about your favorite books and what's on your TBR.
Hi. All right. I've got a couple here that I wanted to talk about. Firstly, I'd like to really get into in depth what I believe is India's greatest contribution to literature, the Karma Sutra. Now, if we can all just flip to page 73. I know you've got all right, I'm kidding. What I'm going to go to one of my old standbys. I first read this book when I was quite young, and I've had it with me my entire life, and I go back to it quite often. The author of this book, Stephen King, referred to as the switch watchmaker of suspense novels. So that's pretty high praise. And it was written by Ira Levin, and it's called The Boys from Brazil. It's a mystery thriller. I would call it more of a suspense. Now, I'm going to be very careful talking about this book, because one of the beauties of this book, you'll find, particularly if you're a mystery reader or a suspense reader, that the ending is absolutely, unequivocally unguessable. So I don't want to give anything away whatsoever, because I strongly recommend that everybody read this book. It was published in 1976. It's set in 1974. Well, it spans from about 1968 to 1974. And it's the main character is Jakob Lieberman, and he's a Nazi hunter. And he stumbles across a plot. Obviously, in 1976, the war is well over, but there were quite a few Nazis still in hiding, and they were still being hunted actively at that point. And he stumbles across a rather intricate plot to revive the Fourth Reich. As it turns out, the antagonist, the main antagonist, is Josef Mengele, who you may know as the Angel of Death. And again, without giving anything away, the way the plot unfolds, you're spoon-fed, and given that you follow quite closely with Jakob as he uncovers the plot piece by piece by piece, and every time you think you've got a handle on it, something else is uncovered that spins you in a completely different direction. It deals with moral issues that you could call even now contemporary. Some things, actually, I was smirking when Suman was speaking, because you were saying how you challenge yourself and you look at not only the scientific, but the metaphysical and the religious aspects of things. And that's sort of where the main the driving force of this scheme lives, right in that gray area. So at its very core, not only does the book deal with some very touchy-feely, gut-wrenching topics, but its very core, the driving force behind the resurgence of the Fourth Reich, is something that even now is being debated quite heavily. And again, I don't want to give away what that is. The writing style itself, Ira Levin, it's very simple language. It gets the job done, but you're not going to smell jasmine like with Anne Rice, or it's pretty plain language. It's easy reading, and you can chew through it fairly quickly. But there's a style to it that I don't think I can compare to any other author. The way he writes, for example, this Jakob Lieberman, he's a Nazi hunter, and just by the very nature of his profession and knowing what we do about the Holocaust and the atrocities that were, spent on the Jewish religion and race, you right away, you hold him to a certain esteem. But throughout the novel, he's questioning his own motives. He's constantly questioning his own integrity, his own morality. And the way Levin makes that believable and makes that real is brilliant. Someone that you would hold above reproach, but start to actually question, is what he's doing right? I mean, the man is hunting Joseph Mengele. What could possibly be wrong with that? But you start to question it. So it's brilliant writing in that perspective, from that perspective. As a matter of fact, the entire book raises a lot of moral questions, and it's sort of steeped in moral ambiguity. So you're never at ease. You're never completely at ease when you're reading this. You're always questioning how you feel about what you've just read. And Nolandria and I have had this conversation many times, where the theater of the mind is much more powerful than any monster in the closet or anybody hacking off a limb with a machete. And that's right where this book lives. It's theater of the mind. It's chilling. It's right to your bone. It's chilling. The plot is tight. There's no real subplots or things that distract you. The plot is very tight and fast moving. It keeps on track, start to finish, and it literally drags you by the throat from the first page to the end. I know that the term unputdownable is tossed around quite frequently, but this book truly is. The characters are so well crafted that to take a monster like Joseph Mengele, and as this plot or this plan is revealed piece by piece, and you start to see the ingenuity and I don't even want to use the word, but the genius behind it, and you're forced to see Mengele in a light of respect, which is an appalling thing to have to do. But the way he's written the character, and obviously I have no idea what Joseph Mengele was actually like, and I would pray that he wasn't actually like the character in this book, because you find yourself not siding with him exactly, but almost hoping he can pull it off. And it's a really strange, and that juxtaposition with you really wanting Yakov to catch him and to win, and it's definitely worth the read. There was one other thing I wanted to say and it's escaped me. Anyway, okay, I guess that's it. This book is a lot of crime thrillers, a lot of suspense thrillers. When you get to the end, whether you've guessed it or not, a really well written book, it lingers with you. I mean, we can all agree on that. I mean, these are the books that we keep going back to because you never really lose them. They're always there. They linger for days after, the hairs are still standing standing up on your arm. But this book, particularly the last chapter, it's like getting punched in the gut by a boxer repeatedly. It doesn't stop. Like I said earlier, it grabs you by the throat from the first page and it drags you through the story. If you don't want to read it or not, you're gonna hear what's happening. And it's just repeated gut punches, and you're never at ease. You're completely uneasy the entire time. So that's the one I really wanted to strongly recommend. Ira 11 Boys from Brazil. It's a classic. And I did want to give a quick shout out to this. It's hot right now. Yeah, I can see a few reactions. People have read it. I was reluctant to pick it up because I thought it might be a bit just not what I read. But it turns out it is what I read, and great twist at the end. And I was particularly taken with it because it's for those of you not familiar, it's about a psychologist who has some deep psychological problems of his own, and he's drawn to this particular patient who's hasn't spoken, the silent patient.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm giving away too much of the plot by saying that she's committed a murder and she's been institutionalized and hasn't said a thing about it since the day of the murder. So he's drawn to this patient. He's going through his own struggles, marital problems, his own mental issues as he's trying to help this patient. and it builds speed. Again, little by little, what actually happened during this murder is spoon fed to you, and it's quite a good ending and a very easy read. I chewed through it in I think a day and a half. Not Chitra speed, but not too bad. And yeah, it's I would highly recommend it. The other thing I was very impressed with it. It's written in the first person, and you just don't see that too much anymore. The work in progress I just finished for Nano. I wanted to write it in first person.
Awesome.
And after a few chapters or chapter outlines, I thought, you know what, I don't know if my skill level's there, and there was just too many obstacles. So I went with the standard, third person omniscient, and sailed through it. When I read this book, I thought, shit, oh, can I say that? We're live. Gosh, I thought to myself, that's how you handle that. It's really well done. And so kudos to by Alex Mencheletis, which I believe is Greek. I don't know, but yeah, very well done. So those are my two contributions. Thank you for listening to me, Natter.
Great listening to you, Lee. I'm going to pick up those books next.
If I'm
Thank
not,
you.
this is not self-promotion, but since Lee mentioned first person, I'm going to talk about a book which is also written in first person later on. But when I was writing my book, Letters of Nine, way back in 5-6 years ago, when I was writing the book, initially I've written the first 6-7 chapters in third person, because the book had two narratives, one of the serial killer, one of the writer. So I thought it's better if I go with third person. But then for the very fact was somehow it was not connecting with me. I was not being able to, it felt that the narrative was becoming same, but I needed two distinct narratives. So I went with first person for both the writer and the serial killer. So it's a dual narrative, but both in first person. So I don't know. I mean, I just felt it for that book. I felt it's easier for me if I go with first person.
Well, talking about the first person, when I was writing my novel, I was advised time and again not to write in the first person. That too, I wanted to write. I had written about 30 to 40% in first person present tense. So it was like, you're making a huge mistake. The reader is like, no, it's very selfish. I mean, a very popular writer. I used to attend a lot of writing workshops because, I am a reader and I know my basics and everything, but still I feel that I need to improve. So I attended workshops with very popular writers, and they're like, taking the reader on the journey, pulling them like this is very selfish. You shouldn't write first person present. Always choose the third person. Past tense. Okay, fine. So I changed it to past tense, but then I stuck to my first person because the narrative demanded it. But yeah, I still think that my present tense was better.
As a writer, I don't think that as a writer, psychological fiction, I would say, psychological thrillers and all that, there are certain things you can do while using first person that you can't. When your story doesn't have a lot of dialogues per se, right?
Yeah.
Inner thoughts of the characters or the character is more important than actually verbalizing their thoughts. And when you have lesser characters, now I had only two characters, and even though I had to put in the point of view of both, it just felt easier because I could put in the inner thoughts more easily rather than making them verbalize whatever they are thinking. I think it leaves a greater impact.
It's definitely inspired me. The one I've got brewing now. I'm doing it. I'm going first person, definitely.
Lee is a factory, once one production is complete, he moves on to the next production. It's an infinite cycle. It doesn't stop.
Does never, not till I'm dead.
Okay, thank you, Lee. And I think Chitra would go next. She's got a stack of books piled up that she wants to talk about. So before she does that, I have a little announcement that I would like to make. if it's all right by everybody.
Go
Right.
ahead.
So a while back, Neeraj knows this because Neeraj is involved. A while back, we announced a contest, a poetry contest called Soul Hymns, and we got a lot of responses, a lot of submissions, and we sifted through the submissions, picked out the best that we felt were good enough to be in an anthology, which was also named Soul Hymns. And we carried out some events, a poetry workshop, and other events that we carried out. Some will be in our YouTube channel, some were not, like the workshop. We couldn't have put up the workshop in the YouTube channel, but we're going to have more workshops in the future. So finally, the book is out. It's released. It's the Kindle version that's been released now. The paperback will come after a few days, but the Kindle version is out on Amazon. So please go
The
read
link.
it, Neeraj. Please do that. It's your book as well. And everyone else, I think it's got some amazing poetry by the 24 poets who have come together to write poems. I am also there. Chitra is also there because we thought, hell, it's our anthology. Why shouldn't we be there? So we have we have our it's been released worldwide on Kindle called Soul Hymns. The link will be in our description as well in this video. So please go and buy the book. There are some amazing poets in the book who have written amazing poetry in a lot of diverse genres, and it's a beautiful journey, and I'm pretty sure that you'll enjoy it. So here's the announcement. It will be up on our social media handles soon.
So
But
just if you want a short link, it's like mybook.2 by Soul Hymns. So it's a very like easy link to remember. So it's available worldwide on Kindle, and the paperback will be out soon, and we'll be keeping you updated about it.
yes, please buy the book. Otherwise, both me and Lee will give you a visit if you don't buy the book, and it will not be very pleasant if me and Lee come together or even separately.
I'm not sure we should be doing that for a poetry book. I mean, marketing wise. I mean, it would have been nice for thriller books and action adventure, but not poetry.
No, I'm just blackmailing people. I'm threatening people. Buy the book. Otherwise, me and Lee will come.
Yeah, see Lee's background. I mean, that's
Yeah, see Lee's background.
I want to butt in a bit. I mean, kindly forgive me if I go on and off from the camera because my father is in the next room, and I mean, he.
okay, sure.
What should we say? He has certain neurological issues, so I have to attend him from time to time.
That is perfectly okay, sure. Not an issue.
Sorry if you felt that.
No,
if
that's
anyone
No,
felt that
no, that's
I'm not
okay.
going
We
anywhere
get
else.
it.
That's
Thank you.
see the point. What makes a Zoom call really great and entertaining? These kind of things. People going off, people coming in.
Bringing
Someone's
juice.
network is not well. Like my network is really dodgy, so I'm going off from time to time. Okay, that is what makes a Zoom call. Don't worry about it.
Look at that. So, guys, I am next, and
okay,
I have.
Just one minute. Very sorry to interrupt you, but Lee was showing his book. So, if Lee, if you want to talk about your own book for some time, please go ahead and do it.
He can't talk about this book. I'm going to talk about this book. No.
Okay, so Chitra is going to do the honors for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about my book anyway. To be honest with you.
Okay, guys. So, not to freak you out, but this is the stack of books that I'm going to talk about. So, all of you have been focusing on one or two particular books because I keep reading so much of stuff. So, I was like, let me talk a little about all the books that I've been, reading and, going to read. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the two books that I finished in December. So, and these are going to be honest reviews. I mean, not like too much of praise. If I don't like it, I don't like it. So, unpopular opinion here, I finished the Night Circus in December. So, I got it because I'm really into the fantasy genre. So, I keep reading a lot of Sarah J. Maas, and these are guilty confessions. Okay, Sarah J. Maas, and then Stephanie Garber. So, I found the Caraval series to be really good. Okay, so if you have that series, if you're interested in the fantasy genre, please do go check it out. So because people recommended the Night Circus is kind of like the Caravel series, so I opted for this book. And I was at this point of DNFing it. DNF means did not finish, which I generally do not do with books. But I found this book to be really slow. There's a lot of magic here, and the characters are good, and there are certain moments in the book where you just like to pause, immerse yourself in the book. But apart from that, it's so slow moving that I sort of want to push the characters into doing something or getting into some action. So I think the descriptions are beautiful. The characters are beautiful, or the costumes, the way they're described, the settings, the places, the magic is well described. The romance is kind of a slow burn. But if you're expecting this to be, in the fantasy genre, the typical fantasy genre where there are lots of action, and this is not really the book that I'd recommend for such people. If you're looking for a very fast-paced book, not for this. I had buddy read with one of my friends from TCC Bookaholics, that's our book club, and even they couldn't finish it. They're like struggling to finish it. So at first sight, it might seem like a good fantasy read, but I did not find this. So my next book is Farah Bashi's Rumors of Spring. Okay, so this is a book. It's Farah Bashi, Rumors of Spring, A Girlhood in Kashmir. So it's about, it's more of an Anne Frank type of narrative where this girl is narrating her experiences growing up in Kashmir, which is constantly under attack, and the behavior of the policemen, the behavior of the terrorists, and how the common people are trapped all in between, and what it means for the girls in Kashmir. I could relate a lot to it because, I've read books like Persepolis. It's the kind of a same kind of feel that you'll get. Even sometimes in Book Thief, you will get this kind of feel, what it means for girls to be held always, captivity and stuff. So I really could relate to this book. And there was one chapter where this girl, she talks about her constant anxiety. Like she's constantly under stress. The people in her family, they're falling ill, they cannot go out, they're constantly shutting the windows, because even if one window is open, and it says in the book that one window was open and a shot came and dead. So that is why they have to constantly shut the windows, and there are tear gas shells always coming in, and they're making the eyes water and everything. So she's suffering from constant anxiety. And she develops one, although it's not mentioned, that kind of condition is not really mentioned here. It's called trichotillomania, which means the act of pulling out your hair. Whenever you are stressed, you pull out some strands of your hair, and that helps you to relax. So people cut themselves, when they harm themselves when they're, suffering from anxiety or stress. And this girl, she pulls out her hair. So why I related to that chapter? Because I have been through this myself. So in class 12, till I think the first 2 years of graduation, I used to have this tendency, and I didn't even know that it's a condition. So I used to pull out my hair, and it was so addictive. So I'm studying and I'm stressed out, and I have to score high, so I'm pulling out my hair. And in, I think, 1.5 years, I had developed a bald patch here from all the hair pulling. And I still went on doing it, but thankfully I of course stopped. And then I checked that condition, the act of pulling out hair. And my mom says that one of her aunts also had this problem of pulling hair. So I checked up this condition, and I was surprised to see that, okay, it's actually a condition, and I'm not crazy or something. So yeah, so this is a book that I would recommend. So then comes Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. So I think this is one book that many of you would be familiar with. So how many of you have read this one? Raise your hands. No, you haven't. So it's like generations of a family depicted through so many characters. To write such a book would be hectic. It's like there is so much of happening. There are war heroes, there are the widows, there are superstitions, women being accused of treachery to the motherland, falsely accused. There are conspiracies, and at the heart of it all is a family, generations of it, the internal secrets, the politics. And I had read it back in 2014, and this was gifted to me when I first started dating. So so this is special. So I still remember passages from it. I mean, sometimes when I'm just walking, I would remember some lines from the book. So this is the writing is really visceral and it stays with you. And the ending, the way it wraps up the entire, arc of the family that it describes, right down to the last living descendant, the baby, how it all ends. So that is really interesting, and I would suggest anyone to just pick up this book. So the next 3 books that I tried last year, and I keep going back sometimes to this, are 3 books, 3 crime thrillers. So the first is Ellie Nolan's Blood and Brown Sugar. This, yeah. So this is such a gorgeous paperback. The second one is Yakub Totnawala's The Branded Criminal. Okay. And the third is Shekhar Mitra's Letters of Nine. So these are the 3 crime thrillers. They are like my go-to crime thrillers, because all 3 of them, although they deal with diverse topics, but all 3 of them have they are very brave in their narrative. They are they're not confined to a particular style of writing or what the reader would expect of them. So I think they're very brave in the way they have depicted all these characters. They are fast paced, but the characters are really well fleshed out, so you would relate to all these characters. So I think that anyone who wants to start with crime fiction should go with these 3. First with Ellie Nolan's Blood and Brown Sugar, because it deals with an unusual topic. The setting is really unusual, and I don't think the Indian audience has seen something like this in recent years. So it has drugs, it has motorcycle biker gangs, and it has got seduction. So it has it's a complete masala movie, and yet packed in a way that would appeal to both the Indian readers and people abroad. So I suggest that you really go for this book. And then Yakub Totnawala's Branded Criminal, because the way that it starts and it progresses, you would not think that this person initially wanted to write a book about happiness and forgiveness, because it's filled with violence and with events that I strongly relate with, and events that have disturbed me in the past. For instance, the Hindu-Muslim riots that happened in our country, and they talk about tribes who have been blacklisted since hundreds of years as branded criminals, and how they have been exploited as pawns in the entire political game that was played out. So I think in the current political climate, to write such a book with unflinching detail is brave. So kudos to this one. And then, of course, Shekhar Mitra, it has my foreword in it, but that's not the reason why I like it, because it was published way before I got my paws on it. So it deals with a serial killer and the connection with a writer who's a protagonist. So the entire setting was so unusual, and when I got the opportunity to read it for the first time, it was shocking. And the details, I think people say that they are very violent and shocking, but I think that is the way to tell the story, and there couldn't have been a way to mince words. So Niladri, this is one book that you should be really proud of. It was recently republished. So please go check out these 3 books, because favorite crime thrillers, all-time favorites. And then I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much of time maybe. I read this book a couple of months back, Elif Shafak's 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2019, and I completely get why this book works for so many people. Although most of you would have probably heard of 40 Rules of Love by the same author. It's more popular, of course. It has a gorgeous cover design, and this book is not really talked about much. But what happens? It starts with a prostitute who has been murdered and left to die in a garbage bin, and she has 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world, the last minutes of her life, in which she recapitulates everything that happened to her. The writing is so gorgeous. I mean, you have to read this book because it will really bring out your emotions, and every detail is so beautifully expressed. The writing is beautiful. So if I would recommend this book, it would be for the beautiful writing. The story, of course, is good, but the writing style, it's just heart touching. So this is my go-to book if I ever want to read something that will really evoke strong emotions in me. I would pick this book. And another guilty confession, I read Sophie Kinsella when I'm in a very bad mood. So it's most of chick lit. So it's more of like, Confessions of a Shopaholic. I'm a foodie. I'm a shopaholic myself. And I love to shop. I love to binge eat. So I can relate to that, feeling of, oh, I should buy this or I should have this food. And, that craving that comes with it and the reasons that the shopaholics give. So she has an entire series of the Shopaholic series. It was made into a movie also. The movie adaptation was also good. So I read Sophie Kinsella when I'm, guilty confession. When I'm in a very bad mood, I read a little chick lit also. In science fiction, I was reintroduced to the genre. The last that I read was, back when I was a kid, Isaac Asimov's books. And then I read The Last War by Sambit Das Patnaik, and that was I really could connect to this aliens and fantasy genre through this book, and I'm looking forward to reading P.B. Flower's book next, All Kalnan trilogy. So Sambit and P.B. Flower, they're like brother-sister combo when it comes to sci-fi and mythology combinations. So because I have read Sambit's book, so you have these trends. If you have read this, read that. So this is my trend of that. If you have read Sambit's book, go and read P.B. Flower's book, because I mean it's different, but again sci-fi and fantasy and mythology. So I'm really looking forward to reading her series next. And last but not the least, I am going to try these two books, Kiran Manral. Okay, More Things in Heaven and Earth. The cover was gorgeous, and there were too many book recommendations for this, so I'm going to try her next. I have read, I think, a little bit of a chick lit section, but this is more of a psychological thriller, and the writing style is good. So this one, and then Anuradha Roy, so An Atlas of Impossible Longing. So the writing style again is good, and I think there are lots of books that I would try from this author because I've just started reading her, and I really like how she's structuring the stories. So this is all from me. Thank you so much for listening to me. Lots of books, lots of recommendations, and I hope that you would try out some of my recs from here.
Lots of books indeed, and thank you for mentioning Letters of Nine. Thanks a lot. Means a lot. And I'll say one thing about Letters of Nine, that the book was made better by the foreword that Chitra wrote. I mean, she sent me the foreword. I'm like, okay. I mean, should I keep this because it's better than the book itself? So
No.
would anybody read the book after reading the foreword? Then think, okay, we are done. We just read the foreword and we're happy. So thanks for the foreword as well. And also Chitra helped me a lot to edit the book, re-editing when I went to republish it. So we sat together and she helped me a lot to re-edit. So and also not to mention that she was also the one to actually goad me into republishing the book. So I wasn't going to do it, but thanks. Okay, so we'll go to Shreyan now. Shreyan, I think only me, Shreyan, and Chang are left, so we'll just take the Shreyan.
Yeah. So the books which I like are basically centered around the characters which I'm about to write in my next book. But before that, do I have to introduce myself to everyone of you?
Yes, please do.
Uh, I'm Shreyan Laha and I work in Indian Railways. I am a these days I'm bitten by my olfactory senses and I collect a lot of perfumes. And along with that, I am a science fiction author. I have written 4 books. The names of them are Not Worth Living For, A Tiny Reason to Live, A Year Without Summer, and Virtually Lost. These are my 4 books. And I normally read books which appeal to the kind of character that I'm developing in my plot. So, and yeah, before this, ever since my childhood, I am much into Russian literature, translated obviously, and because the length of the books are so much that uh, reading it is a challenge. There are characters, there are the supporting characters, and each of them have their own special arc. And so this is one thing which prompted. What should I say? It forced me to read Anna Karenina. I completed it, and then I went over to War and Peace, both by Leo Tolstoy. Amazing, those are some amazing books. But recently, I found one book. This is Father and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. This was the little book which I was playing with while every one of you were talking. So this book, especially, when you look at normal Russian literature, classical literature, you would notice a type of pattern. There's a strong father figure in every Russian literature. And strangely enough, it also replicates itself in history, their history also. So in this book, there is the central father figure called Nikolai. All right. So Nikolai has a child. What's his name? Arkady. And Arkady brings along with his friend. What's his name? Bazarov. So Arkady and Bazarov together, they arrive at Nikolai's residence, and then the events unfold one by one. It's a short book compared to its other counterparts, and it shows how specifically life can be. Yeah, and one more similarity. Along with the strong father figure proponent, they also have this nihilistic approach towards life. At least one or the other character will surely have. And in the initial part, in the starting parts of my career as an author, I tried to inculcate this feeling into certain characters of mine, because at some point of time, life in general, uh, we do feel sometimes or the other, when we are down or something, that where are we heading to, what's going on around with us. And this is a feeling we have all gone through. All right. And irrespective of any genre we are writing in, for example, I write science fiction, and I was about to talk about project Hail Mary, written by Andy Weir, but I wanted to start off with this for this example only. And now, so actually, excuse me, where was I? I was talking about the downfalls of what should I say? Can you please give me a second? There's something. Excuse. Are you hearing?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So my boss had called actually. Didn't know what to do with his phone call. All right. So that's why I was acting a bit weird. Anyway, so this nihilistic tendency is something which we have all gone through in maybe in our teens or in a phase where we are down, and this is what we relate to. And to describe that in a part of our character as a weakness, this is something um, I am trying to inculcate, because in my first book, that is Not Worth Living For, there is a character called Alexander Ishutin. That guy is a spy of the new Russian Federation, and how to inculcate that character, to inculcate nihilism into that character, I need to learn more about people from that nation and that geopolitical sphere regarding how their minds work. So to know about more about this entire fiasco of how life undergoes from the young son, the young rebellious son, to a father figure, and how the father certain with time and space of his own decides to forego some of his learnings, unlearn and then relearn his things. This is one of the books that I would recommend, Ivan Turgenev's Father and Sons. And the other one, Project Hail Mary, that I was talking about. A Project Hail Mary, what I like about Andy Weir's books are that when he writes a central character, that central character can be viewed as a movie character and not just uh, what should I say, a character in a book. When you turn each and every page, you feel that this can be a scene in a movie itself. That sort of thing I wish I what should I say, I try to inculcate in each of my novels. So these are the two books that the character Ryland Grace is what I particularly liked about the entire series. I mean, it was fixated in and itself in the character, and how and everything else went by here and there, much like Lee Child's the Jack Reacher series or something like that. So yeah, these are the two books that I have read recently and I would like to recommend. Thank you.
I've
Sorry
heard
if
of
it got
both.
weird because my boss's call
No,
was
no, that's
coming
okay. We
right
understand.
now and I had been avoiding it.
Yeah, you do know that this is a recording that will go up on our YouTube channel and he will perhaps watch this. And you're live and
I
stuff.
think he's
I'll send it
confident
to
that his
everyone
boss is
except
not
you.
going to watch this. So
I didn't know how
uh,
to react.
That's okay,
no,
that's okay. No
it's
issues.
fine. I'm at a friend's place right now, and the network here is not as great. So even I'm going off at times. So it is absolutely fine.
All cool.
Okay, thank
No
you,
issues.
Sharon. Yes, I also I'm a history buff. So and Russia has a rich history. So I would like to really read more of Russian literature later on. Maybe when I finally retire after 35 years. Right now, it's looking very unlikely. But okay, can I go? Can I? So
Please,
me and
please.
Chang left. Jackson is fine if I go and then we wrap it up with you. Okay, great. Thank you. So oh okay. So what am I going to do? Okay. Actually, if I want to talk about my favorite book, there are lots, and I would like to mention some of them in passing. But for the past few years, actually, what I've been trying to do, as far as much as I can, is to support independent books, because I've always, since the time I started publishing independently, I've realized how difficult it is and how not a lot of people talk about it. We talk about classics that we read or the bestsellers and the New York Times bestsellers and the big books, but not a lot of people talk about the independent books that are released or books that are not by quote unquote really famous authors, but those who are a little famous like Chitra and Lee. So Okay. So, but just as passing, I mean, there's one book that I really want to not talk a lot about, but one book that really not affected also, but it motivated me at a very early age. I used to play cricket, and then a time came when my cricketing career just went down the hill because of other issues and all that, and I was really grappling with an identity crisis per se. I mean, I was to write poems and all that, but I was not a writer. I was not a cricketer. I wanted to do something else, and that didn't happen. And I didn't know what I was doing with myself. I think I was 16 or something at that time, 15 or 16. And then I read a really short book on Jonathan Livingston Siegel, and I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I don't know how many of you have read Jonathan Livingston Siegel, but it's about a seagull who is learning to fly, and he's sort of an outcast, and it's about anybody who's you can correlate that with anybody who's pursuing anything of excellence. You can correlate that. It did help that after 2 or 3 years I learned that it is also one of the favorite books of Rahul Dravid, who is my childhood idol. It was a complete coincidence, so I went back and read it again just so that I can read it from, because it's Rahul Dravid's favorite book. And both times it really, really inspired me. That's the only book that really inspired me. Other than that, I have a favorite book, If Tomorrow Comes by Sidney Sheldon, and I can never tire of talking about it. And there's a reason also why that book, I remember that book so vividly. I don't believe that any book is ever really perfect, but if there is one book that is just my opinion, I'm not saying that you might have a different opinion, but one book that came really, really close to being perfect for me was To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, I can read that book anytime. No matter how many times I have to read it, I can read it. And then we'll have another session where I talk about Sherlock Holmes. I just can't finish Sherlock Holmes in 5 minutes. I can't. So we'll have so that. But okay, so the few books that I'm going to talk about. I mean, there are one book, I don't know whether you have read it or not. It's a book on Night Shift by, I think the author's name, I may be a little wrong, but I think it was B.R. Myers who wrote it. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. It's about a guy who takes up job as a security guard at a supermarket sort of store. And he on his first night, he comes across a girl who works in inventory, but it didn't seem likely that she's working at inventory at night. And then he meets other people who are also working night, but then things take a turn. It was beautifully written, it was haunting, it was thrilling, and it had a beautiful love story amidst all. I don't. It was published as an indie book. I think it was first published in Wattpad. Then it was published, I think, later on in Kindle or something. But if you can, please go and check that out. Night Shift by B.L. Myers, I think, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Then there is one person that I think all of you know, and when I first read his book, the first book, I messaged him saying that your first book is way, way, way better than what I had written, and that's Chandrayaan. And the entire trilogy of his Radha Bose, it wouldn't be I wouldn't be wrong to say that it's one of my favorite indie series, if not the most favorite. It is amazing. The writing, the fluidity of the writing, the storytelling, the way he grips the reader from the first page of the first book in the last page of the third book. It is brilliant, according to me. Then, why I mentioned If Tomorrow Comes a little, because my book also, Letters of Nine, follows a female protagonist, but then Chitra's Linga Vinova. And I am talking with no bias over here. And I'm not saying this because she spoke about my book first. I read the first. I'll tell you. I'll just, if I have time, I'll just say one small anecdote about it. Chitra had asked me that, do you want to edit the book? And I said, okay, fine, I would. And she sent me 4 chapters. Just 4 chapters. I read the 4 chapters and I texted her saying that, you're really going to let me edit this book? And And she's like, yes, I think so. And thank you. That was my only thing. Just thank you. A very bland and grab thank you. But from within me, I was screaming that, wow. Okay. It's brilliantly structured. It's brilliantly written. And again, she follows the first person narrative. And the character, Miris or Mirisha, it's not an easy character. It's not a really likable character. I'll be honest here saying in the first 10 chapters, we were editing the book and I was telling her, I don't like this woman really, I don't like her. And that is the journey of the character. She starts from being a very unlikable character with her, eccentricities and idiosyncrasies and her viewpoint of the world or the people around her. She's really paranoid. Uh, she can't trust because of her experiences and whatever. But it was needed for the character because of what she has been through as a child and then in a relationship and then later on as well. It needed that cynicism. And by the time the book ends, you grow to like the character. And I think for a writer to achieve that in the first book is mind-blowing. Because for me, maybe it would take me another 5 to 10 years to go to that level of writing a character of that magnitude with so many layers to the character. One. And then there's a book, I have not yet finished the entire book yet. I have maybe 4 more chapters to go, but that is Blood and Brown Sugar. Lee. Yes, I have 4 chapters to go, Lee. And I had to mention it because that book it's a ride. And the way it starts and the way it progresses, when the book started, I felt like, okay, it's going to be really sort of, okay, it's hard hitting, but I thought it's going to be really, in a way, some books are it's cold, you get a feeling that, okay, this book is going to be cold, but it's not. It's entertaining as hell. Okay, I was going to say something else, but then again, I remembered you're on YouTube, so I didn't say it. Sorry. It's entertaining as hell, and it builds up from and what I like about the main character of Alexander is that the character is not shown to be infallible. Sometimes these characters are shown to be like that. But that character can beat up somebody very easily, but he can also get beaten up. And he has in the book. He is strong, yet he's vulnerable. And it's one such book where the supporting cast is as good, if not better, than the main character. And for me, that is because as writers, I know we don't, sometimes what happens is we get too biased with the main character and we don't put much effort on the supporting cast. They're just there to enhance the story, and that is it. But here, I mean, Lee could write a sequel or a spin-off of this book with any of the supporting cast. I mean, I don't know whether Lee agrees to me or not, but I really think that he can really take it. I mean, he's writing a sequel. Yes, I know the sequel is almost done also, but he can really take up one of the characters and do a spin-off, maybe a novella, maybe a short story. He could build up a universe around this. Okay, so that is one. And then another book that is okay, I'm really afraid to say it right now, because if I say it, maybe Suman is going to kill me, but okay, Suman's book. Okay, and I'm saying this because I'm editing it at this point of time. I'm still working on it. I'm sorry, Suman, we have crossed 2 deadlines. Okay, but I'm the George R.R. Martin of editing. So Winds of Winter is coming. Suman's book is coming. Okay, but okay, I've not read too much of Tolkien. I'll be very honest. Okay, but I have read the entire Songs of Ice and Fire series. When will the next book come out? I don't know. But okay, so I used to think George R.R. Martin's world building skills are the best. Okay, I still think. But if there's one writer after George R. Martin with no bias, if I say on merit of only world building, and that is P.B. Flower. Really, the way she has built up the world It is because it's not an easy world to build up. It is not. It's got a lot of mythology, a lot of science fiction, a lot of backstory. Okay, it's not an easy world to build up, and there's so many characters. It's not easy to be objective about each character, or give them their own space or their own voice, and she has done that. Okay, and that's why I'm taking so much of time editing this book, because it is intimidating, just to know that, okay, I have to edit it, I have to better it. Okay, I have to keep everything in mind and keep her vision intact, because this is a book where even if it is diluted even by 2% with an editor's vision, it's not going to work. It needs to be the author's vision, because the vision is so strong. Okay, it's a long book, yes. It's entertaining, yes, but it is absorbing. And once you get into it, it takes a little time to get into it, because there's so many characters and you have to learn a lot, and you have to keep a lot of things in mind as you're reading it. It will challenge you, but if you can overcome that challenge and if you can get into the book, it is absorbing. And the world building,
Thank
again, the
you.
world building, I keep on going back to the world building, and it is amazing. So again, Lee's built up a world within a real world. He has built up a world which is fascinating, and Suman has built up a world in her own world, which is fascinating as well. So that's it. I think these are the books. I could talk about a few more, but let's not go there now. I think these are the books that I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nilandra. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with this is with no bias. It's not because I spoke of Chandrayan, Chitra, Yuli, and Suman because you're all members of TCC and you're friends of mine. No, I did not. Even if you were not members of TCC, I just picked up your books, off the shelf. I would have said the same.
But
Because
yes, I am glad that we are connected through TCC. Otherwise, I mean, maybe we wouldn't have known each other or would have, picked up each other's books. So
yes,
I think that's more of the opportunity that we got by connecting to each other through this community. It's really amazing.
and that is why we came up with TCC. That is why the community is there, because it is to connect people. It is to make writers aware of other writers, and because writers are fundamentally readers. First,
Readers, true.
it's the oldest writing advice: be a good reader if you want to be a good writer. Okay, and it holds true. And we get to read so many books, get to know so many people, pick the brains of each other, while being in the community, that we wouldn't have been able to if we were not. Maybe we would have known each other through social media, but that one-on-one connection does not happen. I know thousands of people on social media, but I really don't connect to them on a one-on-one basis like I have connected with all of you. So that was the point of TCC, and I'm happy that we have been able to connect and get to know each other. I'm
Thank you,
also
Niladri,
tiny
for
bit proud.
Thank you, Niladri, for that awesome analysis of each book. I'm honored that you have mentioned my book here, and truly feel honored that you have edited my book because
Please do send me a check.
okay. Okay, so next up is Jackson.
Last up is Jackson. Jackson has been completely quiet throughout the meet. He hasn't spoken. He's like, for Jackson, I don't know whether you understand it or not. I mean, I don't know whether you understand Hindi or not. But Jackson throughout the meeting was like, "Apna time aayega."
Like my time is gonna come.
Yes, and today I want to introduce one of the books that when I was a high school student, my teacher introduced me to read it, and it's this book called could you say Once a Runner? Yeah, it is about the runner that he tried his best. He tried his best to become an elite runner for 1 mile, and his dream is to participating in Olympic Games and wants to run the 1 mile race under 4 minutes. Yeah, 1 mile race under 4 minutes. And during this time, that according to the book, they say that the most important thing is about they can inspire and encourage people to see how an athlete trains himself or herself to become not only independent but also become self-disciplined, and also because the time the main character Queen Cassidy. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Because the main character, Queen Cassidy, is trying his best to, I would say, during the time during the Vietnam War, and Queen Cassidy participated in one of the, I would say, demonstration at the campus, and he faced the suspended of his school scholarship and also for training facilities or rights for joining the games about the track and field team. And finally, he tried to give up many things, for example, scholarship, his girlfriend, his his right to study at school and go back to the countryside with one of his fellow, Brendan Haddon. And Brendan Haddon tried the best to train him to make him to reach the goal. I mean, to go run the 1 mile under the 4 minutes. And this time that during the training, he had the dream and he had the opportunity to compete with another worldwide famous 1 mile runner. I would say called yes, a greatest 1 mile runner in history, and a rare insider's account incredibly intense life elite distance runner. One runner is an inspiring, funny, and spot on tale of one individual to become a champion. Yeah, to become a champion. So I recommend that if someone can have a chance to read this book, that you can see very important things about how to train yourself. Because sometimes I would think that become a writer seems like sometimes more like become an athlete. You need to become self-disciplined, independent, and try to organize your time well to train or find some inspiration to write your book. Yeah, so that's one book that I want to recommend to all of you to read during the Lunar New Year in my country.
Nice. So it's a mixture of nonfiction and fiction. So they're like telling the story to inspire, I mean, how to organize your time well. It's more of like discipline, like an athlete, that kind of inner strength that we find within ourselves. Quite inspiring. You've also read a lot of Tagore, I think, you're right, Jackson, because when you had, I remember the very first community meet when you had been showing your paperbacks of poetry, you was you're saying that you had read a little bit of Tagore as well, right?
Yes, and currently I try. Uh, last time I mentioned to uh, Shekhar, your name. I mean,
Yeah.
Shekhar. That because like I'm writing my thesis now, so I postpone some of my publishing not for a while, but I may try to continue my writing this semester because I complete half of my thesis, and also my thesis advisor told me that if I face some difficulties or some mental challenges, that maybe I can try to write some books to relieve the pressure from when you try to face a huge task that you need to deal with it. Yeah. And anything about that?
Suman's cat had to come in. We had to have Suman's cat.
Sorry, she's like attacking me, my cat.
Okay, I think okay. Okay. Okay, we're not gonna say it on YouTube. We're not gonna say it. So thank you, Jackson. And can I just, before going, can we add a tiny bit something?
Please.
I started out reading. My introduction to literature was Hardy Boys, and I have read tons of Hardy Boys. My brother had a whole collection of them, so he used to give me that Hardy Boys. So that was my introduction to reading, and I would still read Hardy Boys with, I would still devour Hardy Boys. I know that their quality has gone down over the years, and it's written under a pseudonym. There are different ghostwriters who write Hardy Boys, and they don't have, Franklin W. Dixon is just a name, and there are different writers, so the quality is always up and down. But I can still die for Hardy. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Still a Hardy Boys mystery.
Yeah.
Frank and Joe, I still love them. What can I do? Okay, I think this has been a great session, informative. Although we had less members today, I think the situation would improve next month, and we would have another theme.
I take personal responsibility to improve next month. It was all messed up due to me. I understand that.
No, I mean, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I mean, we usually have 15 or 16 members in our community. It's usually Lee and Suman. They know because they've been part of us since the very beginning, and they've, I think, attended all of our community meets. So we have more people, but because of various circumstances, we couldn't have more people today. And also because this time the meet has come at the absolute fag end of the month. We usually have them either in the first week or the second week, but this time. So
And
February
also
will
with the third wave, a lot of families have been affected. So people have been texting me to say that, okay, my father expired, and I'm traveling, and all, I have COVID, my family has COVID. So in these circumstances, I think what is important for all of us to remember is that no matter how less members we have in a community meet each time, we have to keep going for our sake and for the people who look forward to seeing the recordings as well, because that sort of makes them feel that they're connected to the community, and okay, this is something that we will look forward to next month, and let's keep going. So I think that's something that we should be keeping in mind. So no matter what, we should come together, and whenever possible, hop in and discuss writing, discuss books. It's quite important to take a break from all the mundane realities and focus on this part of our personality. So
Speak for your reality, sister. Mine ain't mundane.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we are living in difficult times, and the only thing we can do is
that is the reason that is also the reason I thought about recommending this time, because it's we are living in turbulent times, and
Yes.
the characters also undergo a lot of psychological changes throughout the book. That is one thing which I wanted to say, but during the entire video it was completely.
So, okay, guys, thank you so much for joining in, and thank you all who have been watching this video. Please check out our previous episodes for the various community meets, themed ones that we have had. And we've made lots of book recommendations, and even Suman's cat, she feels the need to come in between and, make her presence felt. So she's an important part of a community meets, of course, and before she completely butts in and attacks Suman, we will end this session. So please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, or we will set Suman's cat on you. So thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye. Have a great time and keep reading.